A compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
His spirit raged like a storm. There are thousands of documents in private and state funds which are in the archives of Kazakhstan, Russia, China, and Uzbekistan. They contain dissertations, reports, and books in multi-volumes. There are official formulations and versions from works of literature. It happened in the year of the dragon, or 1781. It was the most difficult year in the steppe. Not a spot of rain fell from spring. Hot, dry wind was blowing day and night, killing everything. The soil was cracking due to the merciless heat, and fine white sand hanging in the sky, obliterating the sun. Ablai was dying. From Despair by Ilyas Yesenbelin. The last year of his life was full of chronological mysteries. The investigation has continued for more than 2.5 centuries now. There are new facts about Ablai Khan. Today, we don't know some details about Ablai Khan's death. We've received 72,800 documents from the first Chinese historic archive. There are some materials in our archive, and even we, the archivists, can't say what they've been studied. Chapter 1. Encoded Letters. There are 2 million various documents in the Omsk archives, the treasure trove of documented memory. So they've been kept here since the 1740s. The earliest documents date back to 1722. One of the most mysterious materials is kept here too. There are diplomatic letters of the great Kazakh Khan. Kazakh Khans and Sultans had their clerical offices where the clerical work was done. I mean, they had translators who actually translated these documents. However, the documents which remain since the 18th century don't want to reveal their secrets so easily. Is this the Kipchak language? I think so. And it contains Arabic writing. It's a kind of Arabic writing. It's the Kipchak language. At that time, these documents collected by the Siberian Clerical Office were classified as secret. Today, there are only a few specialists who can understand the Kipchak writings in the whole world. Later, it will be discovered what information they contain. Sometimes we find materials that contain a lot of mysterious things. These things haven't been understood, read, or discovered yet. Sometimes the difficulty of working with documents of this fund stops us and other researchers.
Только трудность работы с документами этого фонда, она иногда останавливает и нас, и сторонних исследователей.
Ablai Khan lived from 1711 till 1781. However, it is an official version and many sources quote it. In 1781, when Ablai was returning to the Russian border, he died at the age of 70. He was buried in Turkestan. When it became known in Beijing, the Chinese rulers sent an honorable official to the horde. He found the late Khan's family and made the solemn funeral rites to commemorate the late Khan. Description of Kyrgyz Cossack or Kyrgyz Kaisak hordes and steppes by Alexei Levshin. Everything seems to be clear. The Russian archives confirm the data of the Chinese sources. Vali Khan, Ablai Khan's heir's formal notification about his father's illness and death has remained. However, there were still some inconsistencies. The Russian authorities were informed about the Khan's death after quite a long period of time. There were no doubts about the generally accepted dates for many decades. In addition, Soviet scientists were not really interested in Ablai. They could even be executed for showing interest in him in Stalin's time. As for the Khan's contemporaries, they had doubts about the date when the Khan died and the reasons for his death. I found a document in the Potemkin Tavrichesky fund. According to that document, he gave an assignment to Kulebek Batyr, who was called Kulebek in the sources. The assignment was connected with what had happened to Ablai. Kulebek or Kulebek Batyr at the same time worked as an intelligence officer for the St. Petersburg court.
И Kulebek тот же Батыр, да, который, по сути, выполнял одновременно функции разведчика для петербургского двора.
So what really happened, and when did it happen? Chapter 2, The Key to the Secret. The authorities of many countries, especially China and Russia, tried to find the key to the Khan's unpredictable personality and his ability to resist two huge empires. In general, he was a cunning and experienced politician. In order to receive significant advantages, privileges and preferences from Russia, he took a second citizenship, which was his fallback position. Researchers are not surprised that there were a lot of letters asking to find out if he really had been Ablai and why he had died. Unfortunately, Kulebek Batyr gave information only about poisoning, which could be the reason for Ablai's death. In his letter, he wrote that some Tashkent dwellers had poisoned Ablai.
Написано, что ташкентцы, он пишет, отравили Аблая.
Not only the letters of the Batyr and spy contained this historical sensation. Rumors about that were in the other reports as well. Of course, the Khan had a lot of enemies. Besides Tashkent, he had foes in China, Kokand, and the Russian Empire. There were enemies among his own people, too. Ablai Khan's foreign policy had become complicated by 1779 and 1780. It related to the relationships with the Russian Empire, China, and Central Asian countries. In any case, the poisoning version requires additional investigation and should be confirmed by additional data. If there'd been other versions, Kulebek Batyr would have reported them, but he didn't. At the same time, in some works of literature, there are versions according to which Ablai was ill before he died. Ablai was bedridden for 3 months. Due to unbearable suffering, he lost consciousness for a long time. However, he was a person used to always being in a saddle, which is why he did not lower his head. When he regained consciousness, he saw Bukha near his bed. Ablai only nodded his head as if he knew that before death he would see his old comrade in arms again. Despair by Ilyas Yesenbelin. Bukha was a singer. We can say that he was Ablai Khan's historian. We know about Ablai Khan mainly thanks to Bukha's works.
Мы знаем в основном, скажу так, от произведения Бухаржрау.
There's information about his health problems in works by Bukha and some other sources as well. In letters to the Orenburg authorities, Ablai was asked to send him a carriage so he could go to Ulysses at the old age, and medical herbs for chest pains. In 1779, the Khan explained that he could not go to Petropavlov's fortress to take one oath due to his illness. However, the last example does not prove anything, because he could use his illness as an excuse to avoid unpleasant duties. According to the research carried out by our scientists, it seems that everything was over by the autumn of 1780. Ablai Khan was ill for a whole month and died a natural death. He was buried in Turkestan last autumn. Kazakh Kazanbayev, who was sent to the nomadic territories of the Middle Rus to find out the reason why Ablai Khan had died, wrote this in his report on August the 17th, 1781. Chapter 3. More Riddles. The Ahmed Yasawi Kanaka Mausoleum is a pantheon of Kazakh aristocracy. The grave of Ablai was remained by mysterious chance. Only 2 gravestones had remained there in an undisturbed state by the 1990s. Researchers are confident that one of them belongs to the great Khan. He suffered from periodontal gum disease. In 1756, Ablai Khan fought in a war against the Qing dynasty and an arrow hit his right leg. Anthropological skeletal features match the descriptions of Ablai made when he was alive. A lot of sources containing descriptions were found. There is information about Ablai's height, personality and appearance. Ablai wasn't tall and had a beard. He thought a lot, but didn't talk much. This information is according to the Chinese. There are documents confirming this. However, it remains unclear why another name, the name of Suyunch Khan, was engraved on the tombstone. There is another miracle in that region. It is so-called Aina Tash, or mirror and stone. It's a marble tombstone on the grave of Ablai Khan, or Abul Khair Khan Suyunchi Kozda Khan, to be exact. From an article by Nil Likoshin, ethnographer, 1902. Probably it was done in order to hide the Khan's grave so that enemies and marauders could not find it. It is difficult to believe that the same stone was used twice, although historians registered such occurrences. There is another assumption, though. There was a version that they wanted to bury him in his seat. However, it wasn't confirmed either. Perhaps they really tried to move him here. It was winter, and it was easier to transport a body in winter.
Пытались отвести зимние условия, все-таки дать зимой это тело легче перевозить.
Only a genetic analysis can bring this matter to conclusion. However, we can spend a lot of time trying to understand why the data was concealed. Most probably, the Russian authorities did not want to spread the news. At least this data was recorded in the special investigation materials provided by the Orenburg Office of Governor and the generals of the Siberian borderlines. Kulebak informed that Ablai's death was concealed. They concealed that from the autumn until the spring. Probably they concealed it in order to elect a new Khan without being brought under the imperial pressure from Russia. Ablai had said many times that he wanted his son to be his heir. The Khan himself could give the order to inform about his death only after Vali had become the ruler. Ablai was afraid that some protege from Russia would be put on the throne instead. In addition, he still bore a grudge against the Tsarina. In 1777, Ablai Khan wrote a letter to Catherine II of Russia asking her to recognize him as the Khan of the 3 Ruzes. However, he received the reply only in 1778. Catherine answered that she could recognize him only as the Khan of the Middle Rus. The parties exchanged angry letters. It is known that Ablai did not come to take the oath either due to his illness or because it was an aspect of his personality. Messengers with secret dispatches left St. Petersburg to look for another candidate who could come to the throne in the steppe. Nevertheless, the intrigues had no effect. Vali Khan became the Khan in the St. Peter fortress. There was a ceremonial atmosphere, banging of drums, firing of guns, and an escort was provided, and he was lifted on a piece of white felt. Epilogue, the Embodied Spirit. There were white azure walls and an impressive staircase in the beautiful building which was steeped in history. This excursion takes you back to centuries ago. Pay attention to the walls, please. This house was built in 1765 specially for Ablai Khan. It was a present from Catherine II. He never lived in this house. At least no archival data confirming that he was here has been discovered yet. In spite of this, you can feel some connection with him here. First, there was a legend according to which Ablai Khan had a house. Later, it was confirmed documentally. Archivists went to St. Petersburg, Orenburg, Yekaterinburg, and Omsk. They found the designs and restored the building. However, it turns out that the building they restored hadn't been the Khan's residence. Again, it looks like a mystery story. In 1780, Ablai died. A fire broke out in the 1780s, approximately in 1780. The house itself was burnt. After that, the area remained empty, but in 1824, a two-story field hospital was built here. There are the secrets of his death and birth, and legends about his childhood, fights, and coming to the throne. Inexplicable events of his life have been studied for centuries. This fact is not surprising, because he was the only Kazakh Khan called Aruak, or Embodied Spirit.